Okay, so I need to talk about something that got buried so fast. Most Blue Jays fans probably didn't even notice it happened. And honestly, that's kind of the point, because while everyone's been losing their minds over Max Scherzer, rightfully so, by the way, there's this other move that quietly went down that tells you everything about where this Blue Jays roster is headed right now. Ben Cowles is gone, just like that. The Blue Jays claimed him off waivers from the Cubs on February 18th, and now, barely a few weeks later, he's back in Chicago. Didn't play a single big league game in a Blue Jays uniform. Didn't even get a real shot to prove himself at the big league level. Just poof, roster move, see you later. Thanks for coming. And look, I get it. I genuinely understand why this happened. When you sign Max Scherzer to a one-year deal, you need to create a 40-man roster spot. That's just the math. Somebody has to go. But what I want to dig into today is why it was Cowles specifically, and what that actually says about the depth this organization is quietly building in the infield right now. Because I think people are sleeping on this. Let's start with Cowles himself. 26 years old, never made his big league debut. That's already a tough spot to be in. You're not a prospect anymore in the traditional sense, but you're also not a proven veteran. You're in that weird middle zone where teams will take a flyer on you, see what you bring in spring, and then make a call. The Blue Jays took that flyer. They saw a guy who can play pretty much every infield position except first base, shortstop, second, third. He's done it all at the minor league level. Add in the fact that he's got some speed, decent enough glove, and you can see why they grabbed him. The idea was that maybe, just maybe, he could carve out a bench role. Be that utility infielder who backs up Andres Gimenez and company. Low risk, potential upside. Classic waiver claim logic. But here's where it gets interesting. Less than 2 weeks into Grapefruit League action, the front office looked at what they had in-house and essentially said, "We're good. We don't need Cowles." And that is not a small thing to say, because what that tells you is that the competition for those bench infield spots is legitimately fierce right now. Josh Kasevich, Charles McAdoo, Leo Jimenez. These three names have been getting after it early in spring training, and from what's being reported, they've made real impressions. These are young guys the organization already has a relationship with, guys they've developed, and guys they believe in. And when you've got internal options performing, why hold on to a waiver claim just to hold on to him? You don't. You let him go back to where he came from, and you let the young guys fight it out. Now, and I want to be clear about this, none of this means Cowles is a bad player. He landed back with the Cubs almost immediately. They reclaimed him. They obviously still see value in him. So he'll get another shot to reach the majors in 2026, just not in Toronto. The Blue Jays' loss on this one is Chicago's gain, and that's fine. It's a numbers game. It's always a numbers game. But let's zoom out for a second, because I think the real story here isn't Cowles at all. The real story is what the Blue Jays are doing systematically to this roster, and Scherzer is just the loudest example of a much quieter trend. Ever since the World Series ended, this front office has been relentlessly focused on one thing: the pitching staff, not just the rotation, the entire pitching infrastructure. They have been adding arms, raising the floor, layering in options, and essentially refusing to let the pitching be the reason this team underperforms. Think about the names they're rolling into 2026 as rotation candidates: Dylan Cease, Kevin Gausman, Trey Yesevich, Jose Barrios, Eric Lauer, Cody Ponce, and now Max Scherzer. Oh, and Shane Bieber is going to be in the mix too once he works through the arm fatigue situation. That is an absurd amount of pitching depth. Absurd. And Scherzer specifically. I mean, what do you even say? The man is 41 years old, pitching in his 19th big league season. He's sitting just over 30 innings short of 3,000 career innings pitched. He needs 11 strikeouts to reach 3,500 for his career. These are numbers that basically don't exist in the modern game. He is a walking Hall of Fame case, and the Blue Jays went out and got him. There's no defined role yet, no firm plan for exactly where he slots into the rotation or how they use him, but having him in the building, having that experience, that presence, that competitive DNA in the clubhouse, the front office clearly felt that was worth it, regardless of the specific role. And that's a mindset shift that I think is worth acknowledging. A year or two ago, some of these moves would have felt desperate. Adding a 41-year-old veteran at this stage? People would have been skeptical, but it doesn't feel desperate right now. It feels like a team that knows exactly what it's doing, like a front office that's building with purpose and is willing to make moves that look unconventional on the surface because they've got a bigger picture in mind. The Cowles move is a perfect microcosm of that. On the surface, losing a guy you just claimed 3 weeks ago sounds bad, sounds like a mistake was made somewhere. But when you actually understand the context, Scherzer comes in, internal young talent is stepping up, you've got options you trust. It starts to look like a team that's operating with genuine confidence in what it has. That's a different energy than what we've seen in some recent Blue Jays eras, where roster construction felt reactive and panicked. Now, let me ask you something, because I'm genuinely curious about this. The Blue Jays' approach to this offseason and spring has been really pitching heavy, right? And I think most fans are on board with it. But the infield depth question is one I keep coming back to. Gimenez is the centerpiece there. Ernie Clement gives you versatility. Kazuma Okamoto is in the mix. And now you've got Kasevich, McAdoo, and Leo Jimenez pushing for spots. Is that enough? Is the infield depth actually where it needs to be, or is the focus on pitching leaving a vulnerability somewhere in the position player group? That's not a rhetorical question. I go back and forth on it honestly, because what the Blue Jays have done with the pitching is genuinely impressive. The volume of arms they have available, the quality at the top of the rotation, the ability to absorb injuries. It's real. But baseball has a funny way of exposing the thing you didn't prioritize, and if the infield gets hit with injuries or underperformance, you don't want to be scrambling in July. For now, though, the early spring returns on Kasevich and company are encouraging, and the front office clearly has eyes on the situation and likes what they see. Otherwise, Cowles would still be there. You don't cut a guy loose unless you genuinely feel good about the alternatives. So where does this all leave us heading into opening day? The Blue Jays are pitching rich, young infield talent is emerging, and veterans like Scherzer are being folded in not just for what they do on the mound, but for what they bring to a clubhouse culture. The Cowles situation is a footnote in all of this, a quiet, almost invisible transaction that reveals a lot about how this organization is thinking and operating right now. The Blue Jays aren't panicking. They're not plugging holes reactively. They claimed Cowles, got a look, liked what they had better, and moved on. Simple as that. Meanwhile, a future Hall of Famer is now throwing bullpen sessions in spring training and chasing 3,000 innings and 3,500 strikeouts in a Blue Jays uniform. Wild times in Toronto, man. Wild times.